I want to let the Podcast P family know that after today's episode with Dwight, I plan to take a break from the pod just to focus on getting my body right and, help this squad make a push.
I know you're talking, but all I hear is blah, 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 blah.
Towards our goal to finish the season out, give ourselves a chance to be in contentions to compete for a championship.
What? Now you need to prioritize. Now you need to get ready.
Yeah.
What the hell were you doing before you got here?
Meanwhile,
Paul George's contract is currently robbing the 76ers blind, and instead of showing any sort of remorse, Paul George showed his classic lack of self-awareness by shouldering 0% of the blame for his team's woes and calling out his teammates and blaming them after a pathetically embarrassing loss to the Chicago Bulls. Imagine paying someone a super max contract to the tune of $50+ million a year and they average a career worst 16 points a game while only playing in 38 of a possible 57 games. Now, your team, instead of being quote-unquote title contenders,
congratulations, you played yourself.
The garbage Sixers are in 12th place in the weakest Eastern Conference in history, and Paul George has absolutely nobody to blame but himself. It's one thing to be injured, but it's another thing entirely to completely fail on your promise to a new fan base, then get upset when things don't go your way, when you are the reason behind things not working. I think the young kids call this gaslighting. The original definition of a Ponzi scheme was called robbing Peter to pay Paul. And oh look, you couldn't script this better if you tried. The 76ers are Peter and are being robbed to pay a guy named Paul, or as he should be better known as, Ponzi P. What an absolute joke and bullshitter this guy is. Let's talk about how Paul George and his NBA worst contract, yeah, I said it, are the main reason behind why the Sixers are in the toilet, and how he should actually shoulder most of the blame instead of giving it to someone else. Let's talk. In his last season with the LA Clippers, our contract here, Paul George played the most games he'd played in 5 seasons with 74, averaging 33 minutes a night, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and the smothering defense on the other end, which has always been his calling card, to give him that credit. In many ways, and thanks to the ever-transparent NBA media talking absolute nonsense, Paul George was being touted as having a renaissance, and most importantly, people started to think he was now underrated, whereas before he was considered overrated. You see the idiocy of the media and how they help to fool people? How can a guy go from being overrated to underrated? It actually doesn't even make sense. Well, Philadelphia, also being the typically clueless and idiotic organization with consistently poor team building decisions and a big bullseye on their forehead, they fell hook, line, and sinker for the Paul George narrative and offered him super duper max money to the tune of $50+ million a year to partner with Embiid and Maxey and push them over the edge into title contention. Did you ever stop to think that even the LA Clippers didn't want to give him that money? Honestly, the absolute dumbest organization, even them, they hesitated to pay Paul George. But nope, not the Sixers. Truthfully though, the expectations were way too high to begin with. If preseason you thought the Sixers had any chance of a title even with 3 of these guys being fully healthy, you are a special kind of moron. I have a timeshare in Timbuktu you may be interested in. Speaking of which, in order to afford my said timeshare in Timbuktu, I need y'all to smash those like and subscribe buttons. We are so close, guys, to YouTube paying us. And I promise you, it will be a better investment than Paul George with the Sixers. Let's get a few things correct and provide him with 2 caveats, or maybe 1.5. Paul George got injured in preseason and hyperextended his knee, and of course that will compromise your play. And that is a big reason why he's averaging a career low 16 points a game, despite being the number 1 option and playing in the crappy East. The second part is, even though there was no evidence to prove it, Paul George stupidly believed he'd be entering into a situation where everybody would be healthy. But that's actually plain stupidity and ignorance, and he literally traded Kawhi Leonard for Joel Embiid. But I guess we can forgive him because he can't help the fact that he's an absolute moron. But that's all the grace I'm gonna give him. When a brand new team has paid you maximum money and have rightfully high expectations, if you get injured, especially in a city like Philly with their small t traumatic injury history with Embiid, you show those fans you are doing everything to get back on the court and help the team win. What you don't do is put all your energy into your podcast, show no desire to be on the court, and then when you finally decide to play, you play like absolute crap and blame the team culture and the young guys for not having a championship mentality. But bro, Philly already knew that. That's why they brought you in. They brought you in to help the championship mentality. This article is absolutely pathetic and should have Philly fans outraged and out for answers. The guy doesn't play, doesn't care, is not doing anything he said he would. And then when he gets on the court, which is, an inconvenience to him, he points fingers everywhere else but at himself. And even worse, because of how big his contract is and the unfortunate injury to McCain, as Philly, y'all can't even get better. But let me ask you this on the opposite end. When that paycheck drops every 2 weeks, are you, as Paul George, keeping the money? Are you cashing those checks even though you aren't doing your job? You take the money, live the high life, but the promise you made is fake from the beginning? Wow. What about if the situation was in reverse and the Sixers were doing well? You best believe PONZI P would be lapping up all the credit and selling to anyone who'll buy that he's a superstar caliber player in the league. But of course, when the team sucks and Paul George doesn't show up, of course it's not his fault. The blasphemy for even suggesting that. Man, as much as the 76ers are a god-awful trash organization run by donkeys and I love to see them suffer, even they don't deserve this. They paid a guy to play and be a leader, reasonably so. And at the very least, if one didn't work out, he would do the other and help the organization win games. And if not that, at the very least, show the young guys what it is to show up every day and be a professional. But guess what? He's doing none of the above. But yet, he's taking the money, not showing up, and then blaming the organization for lacking in the thing they brought him in for. Wow, that is honestly special work. His name isn't Playoff P, it's not Podcast P, it's Ponzi P. And he's robbing the 76ers blind.